Hey everybody, Coach BK, and we have Kelsey Combs here. She, rock star, is here to talk about some really wonderful stuff today. So, Kelsey, how you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Managing, there's a lot of stuff going on right now, right?
There certainly is. The holidays are coming up and have all that.
So I always start off with asking, what was awesome for you today?
So I work for a company called Stryker. We are in the medical device industry, and we actually just moved into a brand new building in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and it's state of the art. It's kind of like a Google, Amazon office, Yahoo, like things like that. So it's pretty cool, and that was pretty exciting to get in there and get all set up.
Cool. All right. So I'm Coach BK, Wolfpack coaching, nutrition stuff. Who are you? And we're talking to you today because you did this really big thing. So what did you do?
I just recently qualified for Worlds in New Zealand next year, the 70.3 distance.
Awesome. How does that make you feel? Like, has it soaked in yet?
Yeah, it started to. We've started to book our travel or look at travel and things like that. So it's been always been a goal of mine to qualify for Worlds. I know Kona's always been on my list, and that's still a goal of mine, but to be able to qualify for 70.3 and New Zealand has been on my bucket list of places to visit. So the fact that I'll get to race in New Zealand is even cooler, I think.
Excellent. I want to do the the full Ironman in New Zealand. I think it'd just be a beautiful race. It's just such a big commitment.
For sure. Yep, we talked about I think it takes about 30 hours to get over there flight. So we're talking about going over early and getting acclimated and things like that. And so the logistics is going to be a big portion of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good for you. And tell us a little bit about you, like how'd you get started in triathlon, or why you got started in triathlon, and a little bit more about that.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually, I think I was 20 when my mom actually asked if I wanted to do a sprint triathlon with her. So I can actually remember the race pretty vividly to this day. It was an all-women's sprint triathlon down in St. Pete, Florida. It was a miserable day. It was raining throughout the whole thing. Half of the bike course was on brick road, so it was pretty slippery. But I just had so much fun that day. It was something that I fell in love with and just knew that I wanted to continue to compete in it. And after that race, I think it was even that day that I put on my bucket list that I wanted to do an Ironman. So about 2 years after that, I decided to do an Ironman in Claremont, Florida. So that was my first Ironman.
Yeah. How'd that go?
It was an experience for sure. I ended up, trained my butt off for it. And then 12 miles into the bike ride, I had a nail go through my tire and ended up on the side of the road for an hour and a half until support was able to get out to me. So I went from coming out of the water ninth, to the back of the pack of the bike. So it was pretty much things like that. It was mind over matter for sure. You sit there and you just have to continue to tell yourself that you train for this, and it might not be your best race with mechanical issues and things like that. But that's one thing that I think that helps athletes be so successful is the fact that you have to be adaptable. Everyone's not going to have a perfect race. I don't think anyone will ever have a perfect race. I think you just have to realize that and really adapt to the day and things that happen and come up throughout the race.
I know that the sheer amount of things that can happen during an Ironman or a half Ironman. I mean, if you were just to take some time and like write it down, all the things that could go sideways, you'd be like, oh my gosh, like a running race is a little different. There's just a lot of stuff that can. So good for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of training and a lot of grit and a lot of work to be done in order to get to the place that you're at. What are Like, what's like the biggest obstacle that you've had to overcome, and how did you do that?
I think realizing that you have to race against yourself. I know Ironman has been pretty big on this with social media. They're doing a you versus you
Right.
thing, and you get so caught up with the people that you're competing against, and you're like, oh, I want a podium, I want to qualify. And the biggest thing is really it's your race. It's you against you, and you can't determine what everyone else is doing. And you really have no idea like where they're at in the race, what could happen down the road. So I think that's like the biggest thing that really helped me this past race at Cabo. It was a wave start, so you had no idea where the actual athletes that you were actually racing against, where they actually were in the race. So it's like, yeah, you see people passing you that have your age on their leg, but you have no idea if they started behind you in the swim or if they were ahead of you. And so you really just have to focus on that and do you and just race against yourself.
Right. Did you struggle with, day-to-day training things like wanting to get up, not wanting to get up? I mean, what's the day in the life of a Kelsey like, as far as, tell us the dark and the dirty about the struggles that you had.
Oh my gosh, there's definitely mornings where you sit there and you just want to snooze. I mean, there has been mornings where I've hit the snooze button about 5 times, but my biggest thing is just really trying to stay motivated for however many months of training that you're going through. And my biggest thing is I tell myself, if I wake up and I'm not motivated, I'm like, you know what? Go get on the bike for at least 15 minutes. If you're still not feeling it, get off. But typically you're going to start feeling great. And I've actually had some of my best workouts, like going onto the bike unmotivated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm not a fan of the bike, so if you say so, that's fine. Great. I'm more of a runner. I'm like, go get off the bike so I can run. I was a soccer player in high school and college and stuff.
Okay.
So this biking thing.
And where did you play?
I was at Wichita State, and interestingly enough, lost my scholarship due to a severe hip injury.
Oh, gosh.
And years later, fixed my hip through yoga, and now 3-time Ironman finisher. And
Wow.
When I was in college, I couldn't even walk upstairs. It was so bad. So it's kind of an interesting story, but
Good
yeah.
for you.
You don't give up, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You just keep grinding and keep at it, and you're going to be successful.
Okay. So what other things did you struggle with? Like just real world person?
Yeah, it's kind of getting into a pattern and getting into a groove of what works for you on a daily basis. And my coach is great with helping with that and things like that. And I travel quite a bit for my position that I'm in now. And so he's always moving workouts around, and he's always asking me, you really have to listen to your body and things like that. So I think those things are huge, but really focusing on what works best for each individual, I think, is the biggest thing. It's like, I work well. I'm a morning person, so getting up early and knocking those workouts in, and then also typically getting in one in after work as well.
Okay.
But you're going to go through those long days, and you have struggles at work and things like that. So you just really have to stay positive and focused on your goals.
When you say stay positive, what do you do?
I'm a pretty positive person in general, and you look at the wins in your trainings. Like that was like one thing that I realized this past year is I always loved running. And then the last couple of years, you get in the grind of training for Ironman. You're training 9-10 months at a time. And it's just got, it got tiring and tiresome. And I kind of fell out of love with running. And I felt like I was like slacking some, and I wasn't running great. And so this year really took some time off in the beginning of the year. And then these last 6 months kind of really started focusing on my run again, and started doing track workouts again. And, I was running a half marathon at a 7:40 pace and really getting back into it. And I honestly, that was like one thing that really kept me motivated, and seeing the wins, even if they're little, that you have and experience throughout the training process.
Cool. So what does an eating day look like for you?
One of my biggest struggles actually in the last, like when I first started doing Ironmans and longer distance races and things, I really struggled with finding the nutrition plan that worked well for me. I realized that I hate eating. I hate eating solid foods when I'm working out and things like that. So I got with a nutritionist in Denver, Colorado, and she's actually worked with the US team and things like that. And she really dialed it in, and we're strictly liquid nutrition throughout the races with a few blocks just to have some type of solid food throughout the long day. But for daily eating, I mean, I eat pretty healthy, I think, anyways, but I mean, I'll wake up, typically have 3 eggs, a cup of coffee, and then usually snack a couple hours later, which is usually like a fruit and cottage cheese. Typically have a salad with protein for lunch, another snack mid-afternoon, and then dinner, some type of protein, chicken, fish, steak, and then some type of vegetable. That was kind of one thing that I focused on the last 6 months. And I don't know if it was something that helped me with this past race, but I actually started to cut out carbs. I wasn't eating a ton of carbs the last 6 months, especially like just breads and grains and rice and things like that. So I felt great I never went through a period where I was having headaches or I felt tired. So I actually feel really great not having a heavy load of carbs throughout the day.
I agree with you. I think certain people, they get, that whole fat adapted. I mean, it's just how we're supposed to be, right? We're supposed to be able to burn our own fat for fuel and not be so dependent on carbs. And I get with you when you get, and you just kind of shift into it. It's just like an engine, and you're like, then you can do a lot of, workouts where you're not just shoveling food in, and you feel light and it feels good. And that's a nice place to be. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
So when the training gets hard or you're tired or whatever, you say you're a pretty positive person and stuff like that, and we see that. But is there some specific techniques that you could tell a new person or someone that, wants to pick up a bigger goal? And then when the darker moments, when it gets harder, you don't have all of those wins. Like, so say, you're looking for some wins, but they're sparse right now. What would you say to them?
I think you really just have to focus on the why as to why you're doing this sport, or like look at it and see this should be something that you're enjoying. It should be like waking up and swimming or getting on the bike or going for a run. It should just be enjoyable. And sorry about that. Are you back? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, you should just really enjoy it and enjoy the experience and kind of really focus on the main reasons why you're actually doing this.
And what's your reason?
My reason is like, it just gives me especially the training. It kind of just gives you an out. If you have a bad day at work, if you have, personal stuff going on, you go out for a run and you're just like, if you have a great run, you're like, dang, that was awesome. That, that just, you always feel great after workouts. So I think that's like one thing. And it's like, I was an athlete in college, super competitive. So I think I really missed the competition once I got out of college. And so getting back into racing and triathlons really gave me that extra piece of competition that I needed.
Yeah. And there's like lots of things to work on. You can work on your swimming. You can, just tons of stuff to be working on. Cool.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I'll add to that, it's just the triathlon community. I mean, you get in there and you meet people, and I would have to say at every single race, you at least come out knowing or talking to at least 5 to 10 people and becoming social media friends with them, or you just keep in contact with how their training is going or things like that. So I think that's just the community of triathlon is pretty cool as well.
Oh, I totally dig that, because I'm kind of a social butterfly, and I probably won't be listening to the athlete briefing like you're supposed to, right? You're like chatting to this person, chatting to that person, making friends in the swim line. And, there's always been races to where, we meet somebody. And I really love the triathlon world for that, because I think there's you know, just the toughness of it. You know, most of us are pretty humble about understanding it's tough, and everybody's showing up and towing this big line, and you know, you just, I don't know, I really enjoy how we kind of embrace and help people and stuff like that.
And the stories, everyone's story is a little bit different, and it's just really cool to hear some of those different stories and people's why as to why they're doing it.
Right. So what's kind of been one of your biggest challenges in racing?
I think it's been like really breaking through, and you always have, you know, I've even said it this past year. I was like, you know, I've had good races, and I felt strong, but you haven't really, I always felt like I hadn't really put it all together. And, you know, you go in, you feel prepared, and then that's like something happens and you're like, which you can't control, but it's like you train so hard and you focus. So I think the biggest thing this past race, especially in Cabo, when I qualified, is just the fact that, you know, I went in really confident. I went in feeling like I had trained really well, and just feeling like as much as it wasn't like I didn't hit all my numbers that I wanted to hit, but I mean, for the most part, I felt like it was a pretty solid race.
Like you did the best that you could.
Yep, you did the best that you could, and that's, you know, that's what it's about. That's like, you know, finally putting it together and just understanding that it was the race that you had that day, and that's what it is. Right.
That's wonderful. Okay. What would you say to a new triathlon person about starting out at, you know, like the half Ironman distance? What would you tell them?
I would say, you know what, you just have to be patient. You have to keep working at it. Really focus on the you versus you. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. You're going to get those wins as well. And you really just need to enjoy the experience and have fun with it, and really go back to your why as to why you're actually doing the sport.
Have you ever struggled with too much self-criticism, too much judgment?
Oh, for sure. I mean, all the time you go in, I mean, especially leading up to these big races, you put so much pressure on yourself. And I mean, your friends and significant others and stuff, I joke about it all the time. I mean, it's almost like I want to be wrapped in like bubble wrap for like 2 weeks leading up to the race. And you get so anal about like, if anyone's sick, you're like, don't get near me. And you're like, become this person that you're really not. And you're so anal about trying to like figure out just how everything works for you. And it's just like, it's those uncontrollables that you really can't control. And it happens to the best of the triathletes out there. I mean, you looked at some of the pros out in Kona this past year that had to drop out because they're like, I ended up with the stomach flu in the beginning of the week and I gave it my all. And you just really have to realize that you will have those wins, and you're going to have races where you compete better than others. And some days just aren't going to be yours. And you just have to continue to be positive and drive forward and just continue to enjoy the experience.
Yeah. Have you ever struggled with, you know, like you either have a bad race or training day that you're getting down on yourself, and that self-criticism, you know, comes in, and then you start doubting yourself? Does your coach handle that and say, hey, look, reframe this, turn this around? What are you learning? Do you go through times like that, or?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, you go through, there was several times, even like last year with my run, especially, I'm just like, you know, I felt like I was like this fast runner, and, you know, people would talk about that with you and think, you know, you're a great runner. And it was like last year I really struggled, and I was just like talking with my coach, and I'm like, you're having me run like these like slower paced runs and things like that. And I was just like, I feel so slow. I feel like these workouts aren't working for me. And then if they weren't translating into races and things like that. And I just felt like my runs were really struggling. And that's one thing that I think that really helps triathletes be successful, is you really have to find a coach that you can listen to and you can actually trust, because he's there and he's telling me, you know, keep working at it. You know, you're going to eventually see these wins. And so I think that's one important thing that I found that's really helped me.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The coaching and athlete kind of dynamic. I mean, it's just so fun and interesting to look at, being coachable, how you communicate. I find it fun, and sometimes, it's tough sometimes because, I mean, face it, we're all very stubborn, and, the drive is off the chain, and very, just driven and passionate about it. And I know it's super duper fun and enriching, and especially when you see like the Susans that take on a big challenge and just knock it out the ballpark. So you'll laugh at this, because I'll tell her, I really don't care how the race feels, how that swim feels. When you get out of the water, you get the best swim finish picture ever. Just wipe it all clean. And oh my gosh, if you haven't seen it yet, you need to go see it. Her Madison swim exit picture, she has a video of it too, and it's epic. It's really
I think she sent it to me, but some of her, I mean, even her finishing pictures are some of the best ones I've seen. They're hilarious.
Oh my gosh, I just have to do the squirrel moment. Which race was it? I think it was Madison 70.3, and it was a tough race because I was volunteering and they had some things go on that really kind of impacted me that day. But I'm supposed to do this boomerang thing, right? I don't know boomerang. I don't know how to use it. So Courtney's helping me learn how to do it. And now the whole thing is, you had one job. And I totally messed it up, right? Because I got it, but I didn't save it. Anyway. Okay. The whole point here, people, is that this triathlon thing, this drive to these goals and stuff, it should be fun, and it should fill your heart with good moments, and it should make you feel really good. Is it going to be tough? Yeah. Yeah. The bigger the goals, the tougher the work, but the better the pictures and the bigger the stories, right?
Yep. That was one thing my coach always tells me is, it's not supposed to be easy, and it should be uncomfortable. You should be uncomfortable for the whole entire race, pretty much.
Right. But when I did this at Ironman Texas in 2018, I did the very best that I could the whole race. And when you finish a race like that and finishing up knowing I did the very best that I could, I gave it my all the whole time, I was smart the whole time, there's something about that finish that, you really kind of take it home, and it has a big impact. Okay, cool. What else do you want to say?
Another thing that I really focus on, I think I've actually told Susan this, is like, she's asked some about like getting through the dark moments, and like, especially in the run portion of it, or, anything for the most part. I honestly think that, Ironman and longer distance races is 80% mental and 20% physical. Just getting in the mindset of, you can do it. You've trained, you've put in the work, and it's literally gets to a point where I start the run and I'm like, all right, let's just get to the next aid station, and see how you feel. And once you get to the aid station, you set another goal. And by the end of it, it's literally get to the next cone that's like 10 feet away. So the distances get shorter, but I mean, even this past race, in the first, 3 miles, you sit there and you're like, oh, I'm never going to make this. This is like this half marathon. It's, this is going to be miserable. But literally I did that. It was like, all right, knock the first aid station off, knock the second one off. And then there was like this huge Mexican flag that was one of my markers as well. And I'm like, get to that on the second loop, just get to that. And like, by the time you get there, it was literally like, I had like 4 miles left. I'm like, all right, well, I got this. And at that point, your mind just takes over, and you're like, you push through it. So I think really like pointing out those markers and just really like putting in your mind that just get to that next marker is a huge thing for me.
Oh, absolutely. Do that. I think it was Wisconsin. My second time doing Wisconsin, one of my knee was hurting really bad, and I like to run the run. I'm kind of one that wants to do the pacing, and yeah, you can walk, you have plan, but I have a plan. And I was walking with, do you remember Fireman Bob?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And he's out there, and he put his arm around my shoulder, and he's like, girl, you have plenty of time. You can walk with me. And I was like, no, I have this plan. And he's like, plans are meant to be changed. And I'm like, no, they're not.
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
But I was getting to the point of running and I would just count to 10 over and over and over again, just to kind of hold back that mental, I mean, if you're in pain, that's tough too, but
Right.
yeah, it is absolutely, you just need to get to do something that keeps you in the game and don't let you buy into that suck too much.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate your time, Kelsey. It's wonderful.
Yeah, of course.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Of course, anytime.
Absolutely. Have a good night.
You too.